we have a checklist that we have come up with that we use on lot. This is for us, but it also works for you. There's a couple little things on here that we use just for our lot, but I'm gonna go by our list and kind of explain it as we go. You know, it's really important to dump your or to winterize this camper. Winter's coming. Things are gonna break. Things are going to, you know, bust from freezing. So the best thing for it to do is to get rid of the water and introduce antifreeze if you can. So that's what we're gonna do here, and I'm gonna show you some of the things in this camper that's going to help you get through that very easily. First off, I want to point out that this camper, all our stuff we're going to be messing with is in this underbelly storage. In some of the other campers, they're inside and you have to find your pumps and things like that. So I'm going to be focusing mainly in here as I go through this. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you dump all your tanks. Not only do you have a water system that is pressurized, you have tanks down here that have things in it. They're not as bad to bust, but I would hate to have to change out a busted black tank. So right now we want to dump our tanks and we want to find where they're at on the camper, and I know they're on this other side here. So I'm gonna go pull the valves and make sure there's nothing in our tanks right now. So right now we have your gray and black right here in the same spot. You just want to pull and make sure you have them all dumped. You would have a sewer hose, obviously, but we're just clearing it out right now. Also, it gives us a chance to make sure all our stuffs are holding and making sure it's all good for our purposes. So we probably have a couple gallons in there. So that's our first on our dump tank. Second on our list is to drain our hot water heater. You've got 6 or 10 or 12 gallons of water in this hot water heater normally. So what we need to do is we're gonna have to pull the plug, release the pressure. On this Suburban, this is an 1 1/16 size socket that we use that releases the anode rod and helps drain it. Atwood has a plastic plug instead of an anode rod. You can also get an anode rod for an Atwood, but we just pull these off. First, you want to make sure that you have your pressure released, because this thing has some pressure. If you did not do that, this thing will almost shoot out at you and get you all kinds of wet and probably make you grumpy. But we do not have water in this right now, but we have a plug that we're going to pull out and show you our anode rod. So he released the pressure. This one, again, is new, so it comes out fairly easy. Sometimes they get in there real tight. We use a breaker bar, and it just makes it so much easier. You can get other things in there, but as far as it goes, this one's easy, and sometimes you have to get in there and really give it some good.
So this is an anode rod. This is the plug for the water heater. Brand new. This is the one we just took out. This is one we found on the lot, maybe less than a year old. But it's okay. Okay, this anode rod is a sacrificial rod that attracts the minerals, deposits bad stuff in the water, and it eats away at this rod so that it doesn't eat away at the tank or any of its components. Okay, so again, the anode rod, you can see that 1/8" rod inside. Again, it's attracting minerals, deposits, the bad stuff, and it's going to eat away at the meat of this anode rod. This is a bad anode rod. Okay, an anode rod will last years, probably, depending on the water. But again, it will start eating it from the top and the bottom. So as you pull this anode rod and it's got this thick meat on that 1/8" rod, it's okay to put back in. You don't need to replace it every time you pull it out and see a little corrosion on the anode rod. Obviously that is bad, so you need to replace that. It does have Teflon tape on it. When you get a new anode rod, get Teflon tape, put it back in, really good. Any questions?
And that's a big thing. A lot of people will tell us, "Oh, my anode rod's bad." It's not. When it looks about like that welding rod does, that's when it's time to replace. As long as there's anything on that deal, it's still going to function. So we have drained our hot water heater, and we have left out the anode rod. We are done with the hot water heater on that aspect. Now, behind the hot water heater, in this case, we are going to bypass this thing. So, and what that means is we're introducing water, antifreeze into this camper. We do not want it to go into the hot water heater. right now it is running at normal. You have water coming in the cold, which is on the bottom, and you have water coming out, which is hot on top. What you need to do is you need to bypass this thing, and in this case, you have these in the back. On some other campers and different things, there'll be literature on your camper that says, turn here, turn this, turn that. Just follow those directions and it does this for you instead of having to get back behind the hot water heater. So where you hook up your water, there's usually something that says Winterize, turn here, turn that. You would just turn those two on because you want to turn on the bypass, and that's what we're doing here. So go ahead and flip those. We're cutting the water supply off to the cold, off to the hot, and it's going around the hot water heater. So therefore we are bypassing the hot water heater. It doesn't hurt to get antifreeze in your tank, but that's a 6, 12, or 10 gallon tank. So you would hate to put 6, 12, 10 gallons of antifreeze in a hot water heater. Also, when it comes to de-winterization, you don't have to get rid of 10, 12, or 6 gallons of antifreeze. So that's where we bypass it. Now that we've gone around the bypass, we need to find our pump. Fortunately, this pump is right here next to us. A lot of times in different campers, they're in different places. They like to keep all the water in a certain spot most of the time. So you'll look around your kitchen or bathroom, especially in a travel trailer. They like to keep them in the cupboards underneath something, and that's usually in a false covered up piece where you can get to. But this one for us, fortunately, is right here. So what the pump does, of course, is pulls water from the tank and introduces it into our system. We don't want to, by turning this valve right here, what that does is this is normal where we select on some of the other trailers, it says normal or winterization. The normal flow is pulling out of the tank. So when we switch this, it's going to pull over to the antifreeze inlet valve. If we didn't have an antifreeze inlet valve, we would have to unhook our pump right here and put a fitting on so we can actually draw out of the antifreeze versus drawing out of the tank off of the camper. Fortunately, we have this one that has an antifreeze inlet over here, and you can see where this goes. We are going to hook up a hose in that antifreeze inlet and stick it into a antifreeze jug. So if you guys want to see this antifreeze inlet, so now that we've located this, after we have selected our pump to suck out of the antifreeze inlet, we want to be able to hook up our antifreeze into the deal. So go ahead and hook that up, Jacob. Okay, on here it says Winterize mode, and that's what we did. We went around and we put, in some of the other cases it says Winterize and you want to turn it to on, or it says normal, Winterize. There's usually a location, I know Tommy's trailer has a couple different switches you have to hit, but they want you to winterize these things, so they will give you the proper technique. This one has the label here. So we've got winterize mode. So now we've got it hooked up. We need to introduce our antifreeze into the system. Got it bypassed. The pump switch is inside, so all we're going to do is turn on the pump, and we're going to start pulling out of here, and we're going to go open up all our faucets and valves and watch the antifreeze get in there. So let's go ahead and go inside. So we have the antifreeze sitting outside. We've got a hose going into it. And basically what we want to do is introduce the antifreeze into the system. So Jacob, will you turn on the pump up there? So now we've got water. We have antifreeze. Will you make sure that's staying in the deal? The pink antifreeze will run through and it starts coming out. You want to make sure you're going through your hot and cold because the bypass will go around and you want to make sure it comes through.
And just keep in mind that on a bigger camper like this and even bigger, you're going to have gallons and gallons of water lines. So you've got to let it run a little bit. And AJ ran it until he saw the pink come out of the faucet on cold, and now he turned it over to hot.
So now we have antifreeze coming out. So we know that is good. Also, you want to run a little bit in there just for the P-traps and things. That way you don't have to come in here and dump it yourself. You've got this one. A pretty important one that nobody really thinks about is your toilet. If you've had a camper through the winter and you didn't winterize it, you probably had to change out the toilet valve. It's a pain in the rear. You have to do it, especially for where it's at. So we want to make sure every bit of our plumbing has the antifreeze coming through it. So I'm just going to flush this toilet. Until our pink comes out. And you're always, if you have water coming through your camper, it's almost always going to leave some in here, so it's not going to hurt it. This has got a little grease to it, so it doesn't ever really get dry. You can hear our pump running underneath us. There's that one. There's that one. Do this. Now, another one that a lot of people forget about is your outdoor shower. The most susceptible to the cold because it's outdoor. All right, so I have our bathroom situation taken care of, our sink situation taken care of. So I know up here, I know there's one more spot outside that I need to check to make sure it's good. But up here, that's all you have to do. You have to run it until you see pink and the items you have. I don't have a sink or anything over here, so it's good.
Would there be an instance of somewhere you might have a stubbed out fitting, not used?
Yes. A lot of times in a refrigerator, some of them have ice makers. Okay, so that's up to the manufacturer, but that's also, if you know where your ice maker is, a lot of times underneath you will have a water supply coming through here. They do put low points on there. So you'd want to open it up and drain it and let it go through and then put that back on, for instance. But there are some times in trailers that would do that. Now it would be for basically that instance, but they try not to, unless somebody's altered it, they try not to have a piece going run off into nowhere. Okay, so now up here, all of our water has antifreeze, or there is no more water, it's all antifreeze. So interior, we are good. The only thing left we have is a filter outside, the outdoor shower, which again is very important because it's outdoor, it's going to get cold. So you want to make sure those are good. On our list we have here, we actually write out what we've gone through just for our purposes. So on our list it says that. Now we have that. I'm gonna go outside real quick. If you guys want to come one more time, I'm going to go run the outside shower, make sure our filter has some of the antifreeze in it. A filter is one of the things that tends to bust when it gets cold. It's usually in an area that has all the plumbing in it. So a lot of times I like to put them under the sink or outdoors in the deal. So I'm going to make sure there is antifreeze in there. You guys can come out and check it too. You can see the levels. This is potable antifreeze, so it's not going to kill you if it accidentally got left in there. So this is something that's okay to actually have, especially to take a shower with or anything like that. So, okay, so what I'm looking for is our filter here has pink in it. It doesn't have to be all the way full, but as long as there's some antifreeze in there, it's going to help keep it from busting. And that is, we sell toilet valves and these filters all winter. So I still have this out here, which again is very important because it's gonna get cold. I'm gonna run this.
And while you're doing that, just real quick, it goes without saying that you do want to take your filter out before you winterize it. And that's a good opportunity to replace that at the end of the year. So the filter won't typically last more than a year if you're using it 4 or 5 times. So take your filter out before you winterize it. And a lot of times you'll only have 3 or 4 inches of antifreeze at the bottom of the canister, and that's okay, because it will mix, and as it does freeze, it will mix even more.
Okay. So now I know that I have all of my bases covered. This is off, this has got antifreeze in it, this has antifreeze in it, and that has antifreeze in it. So now I would go turn off my pump to quit giving it pressure, and I would, for us, what we do is we get it back ready to travel. We put everything, pull the low points and everything like that. That's what we do. Now, what you would want to do is just leave it like this. Turn your pump off, and you could have it all in there. A lot of these tanks will have a sediment in it. So when you have this all out here, you'll have residue running all over. We take bottled water or even a water hose out. We get out there and we clean this up so you don't have all your residue left over and it doesn't have this big giant white streaks all over your camper. Clean it up, and then after this, we're ready to go. So we have it, our big main goal is to bypass the hot water heater, get rid of your water. Now you also have a fresh tank. It's not on my list, but it says dump tanks. A fresh tank has water in it. We want to dump that. There's usually a pitcock or a valve or a low point of some sort. So we drain that, and as long as we have no water in our system and it's all antifreeze, you're winterized.
Just wanted to mention that we know that a lot of people like to do their own winterizations. It's kind of fun if you just like those little projects. Part of what we do, and we're the only dealership in the country that I know of that offers free winterizations for all of their customers. So all you have to do is sign up online, call us, and we'll help you sign up. We will do a free winterization for you each year, and we think it's very important that your camping experience comes spring. Whenever you start camping again, is positive. So we do free winterizations every year. You'll see that advertisement coming up, and starting November 1st, we'll start doing free winterizations.
I got a question, yeah. So we use our camper a lot in the winter.
Okay.
Like every 2 to 3 weeks, right?
Okay.
So in the past with our Sierra, we always just drained it.
Yep.
And we didn't do the antifreeze. I just drained everything that had captured water.
Yes, sir.
Does the antifreeze help beyond that? I mean, does it help keep things from getting rusty or anything?
No. Basically, your antifreeze is to be 100% sure you have no water. It does not take very much to bust a toilet valve. You are looking at half an ounce of water that will sit inside there, and maybe not even that much. That is a way to help prevent, but this is, I'm not going to use the word, but it's a better option. We have done it in the past.
And I'd like to add, for probably 8 years, the first 8 years we were in business, we winterized everything with air. So we would drain all the valves, drain all the low points, drain everything that we could, introduce 20 to 30 pounds of air in the lines to blow everything out. What we found over the years is that as these things got bigger and had more water sources in the front and the back and outdoor kitchens and second baths and this and that it was getting harder and harder to eliminate every little bit of air. Water valves, 2 water valves, we found that, like AJ said, a lot of times there would be just an ounce of water in those and they would still bust. So we finally made a decision that moving forward, it is better to guarantee a winterization, introduce that antifreeze to everything. But if you're familiar with your camper and you know that you've done it year after year after year and blowing it out helps, it is definitely
a better option. Yeah.
So how much antifreeze did we use today? All 3 of those?
Three bottles, and there's still probably
2.5 basically. And this is a bigger trailer, but at the same time, there are others that have 2 bathrooms and things like that. So I think 3 gallons will get you, especially if you bypass the hot water heater, 3 gallons will get you filled up. You want to check though, like you said, you got 3 gallons. You want to make sure you aren't just running antifreeze out like a low point's pooled or something like that.
Right.
You just want to make sure you're introducing your system properly.
So all the low points you're not going to open up now. You're going to leave them shut so that it stays in there.
Yeah, and we found that, like that filter canister there that isn't a flow-through style of water system, those low point drains still mix antifreeze. Even though you don't open them and crack them, and
it settles basically.
It does settle through the water. So kind of like that anti-siphon device we were talking about. Even though we're not cracking it or flowing water through it, it does settle through it.
Right.
So, anybody got any questions? Any other things? Any other thoughts? We do this a bunch, and it's a good deal. Obviously, we do 100 or so a year easily, and that's something you could always bring it to us, and we'll do it for you. But it's also good to know your camper. Just also what you said, it's not a bad thing to have that part of your routine. If you go every 2 weeks, it helps to drain your tanks. Setting water makes bad stuff. So if that's part of your routine, you know, our bottles are very available. So it's don't necessarily have to winterize it during the summer, but at the same time, having that routine, just the same thing without the stuff, is going to help.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
You were draining, when you were putting this antifreeze,
Yes.
you said it's going into your P-trap. Some of that antifreeze went into your tank.
Yes.
Do you need to drain that out
So-
right now or leave it in there?
First thing we did was drain tanks.
Right, I understand
okay,
that.
so now what we have in there is a non-freezing liquid. So even if you had some other stuff in there that you couldn't quite all the way drain, now you do have antifreeze in there. So it is good to have that in there. When you dump for your first time, it'll all go out. It's not going to corrode anything. It's all.
Should you leave your cap on and open your valves so that it flows to
I
those
don't.
valves?
I don't
And-
personally like that, but because those valves are just a blade valve, you have all your liquid on one side, the rest of it deals. So having it shut and is a better option.
Knowing your camper, and if you had valve issues and you knew that a little bit of clean water might flow past those valves and get into that cap, would be something that you would just have to know yourself. And in that case, yes, you would want some antifreeze in that cap. More importantly, you prefer just to have functional valves that you know won't flow by.
Yeah.
So
Nothing else, just
let it go after.
push
yeah.
it up in,
Yep.
you know, slosh it up
Yep.
in there and put your
Kind of
cap
about
on.
knowing your camper, and every camper is different. From a Flagstaff to a Flagstaff, or a Flagstaff to a Sierra, every camper is a little different. So
Yep.
kind of have to know each one.